Imagine hitting like $50 million in annual revenue.
Oh,
Right. You're managing this massive team, and you basically wake up every single morning feeling like you are completely failing.
which is such a wild paradox, but it's true.
It is the daily reality for thousands of founders, honestly. They build these massive companies only to find themselves trapped inside a machine they can't control.
Yeah, the business is running them.
Exactly. So if you out there listening have ever felt like your company or, even just your own team is running you rather than you running it, you're really going to want to hear this. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Really excited for this one.
Me too. We are unpacking a super fascinating document today from ThinkQSi. It's called The Founder's Blueprint, From Operational Stability to Strategic Transformation.
A very heavy title,
Yep.
but the concepts are so grounded.
Oh, totally. And our mission today is really to crack the code on why seemingly successful companies, specifically in that $10 to $100 million revenue range, suddenly hit this invisible ceiling and just get stuck for years.
Yeah, and the culprit usually hides right in plain sight. I mean, it really comes down to a fatal confusion of two very specific concepts, which are optimization and transformation.
Which people constantly throw around like they mean the exact same thing.
All the time.
Like a founder will say, we are transforming our sales process, when what they actually mean is we just bought a new CRM software.
Right, which is not transformation at all.
No. And confusing the two is the fatal error that keeps founders trapped in the weeds of their own making. I like to think of it as the difference between finally organizing your garage so you can park your car versus knocking down the garage to build a guest house.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Like, both take a lot of work, right? Both definitely improve the property, but only one changes the property entirely.
Yeah, if you just want a guest house, buying more plastic storage bins for your tools isn't going to get you there. But, before you can even think about building that guest house, we have to look at what founders actually spend their time doing, which is essentially fixing the present.
Right, just keeping the current garage from collapsing on them.
Exactly, because this establishes the baseline of what optimization truly looks like before we can even talk about transformation.
Okay, let's unpack this baseline then. Because if you are running a company at that $10 to $100 million level, you do not have time to sit around debating corporate buzzwords.
No, your reality is incredibly grounded.
You are just trying to keep the lights on, make sure payroll clears, and stop everything from falling apart while you try to build something bigger.
Which is exactly how the ThinkQSi source defines optimization. It is strictly about making today's business run properly.
Just today's.
Just today's. It's fixing workflows so things don't fall through the crack, clarifying roles so decisions don't just bounce around between departments.
It's not about changing what you sell.
Right. It's about making sure what you sell actually gets delivered without causing a daily crisis. And what I really appreciate about ThinkQSi's approach here is how ground level it is.
Oh, yeah, they don't mess around with fluff.
No. Optimization for them doesn't start with some fancy slide deck. It starts with an end-to-end workflow assessment.
Like actually walking the floor.
Literally.
Yeah.
Think of a manufacturing company, right? You walk the process from the very first moment a customer makes contact, through the quoting phase into production, all the way to cash collection and after-sales support.
So you aren't just looking at the final product, you are basically mapping the handoffs between teams.
Yes. You are hunting for the breaks in the chain. Like, say, sales promises a delivery in 2 weeks, but production doesn't even get the paperwork until week 3.
Because it's sitting in someone's inbox waiting for an approval.
Exactly. That is a broken handoff. You eliminate that waste. The whole result of that process is less firefighting, fewer surprises, and consistent delivery.
Okay, but wait. I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
If optimization eliminates firefighting, and it fixes cash flow, and makes everything run smoothly, why isn't that the finish line?
It's a fair question.
I mean, it feels incredibly satisfying to just have a machine that finally runs quietly. Why isn't it enough to just be optimized?
Because a quiet machine doesn't guarantee you're driving in the right direction.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Optimization is super seductive.
Yeah.
It feels like winning because you are finally sleeping at night, right?
You aren't waking up in a cold sweat about payroll.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But optimization will not by itself change what the company is. It just gives you a highly efficient, perfectly polished version of your current reality.
Your perfectly organized garage.
Right, but you still don't have a guest house. So if optimization is just making the current machine run smoothly, That obviously begs the question.
How do we actually upgrade the machine itself?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which moves us, logically, from maintaining the present to actually designing the future.
And this is where the document gets really interesting to me, because transformation is emphatically not just saying, hey, we grew our revenue by 20% this year.
No, the ThinkQSi source is really aggressive on this specific point. Growing just by pushing your team harder or working longer hours.
Just brute forcing your way to a higher number.
Yeah, that is not transformation. That's just exhaustion.
Exhaustion. Yeah, we've all seen companies hit that wall where they just throw bodies at a problem until everyone burns out.
Totally. True transformation means the business actually changes shape.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning you're moving into better markets, you're offering higher value products, and crucially, you are building a company that can run without the founder being involved in every single minor decision.
Right, graduating from the chief problem solver to the actual architect of the business.
But to do that, the transformation blueprint requires asking some really hard, fact-based questions, questions that most founders skip.
Because they're too busy, right? That's the classic excuse.
It's the ultimate excuse. They say they are too busy to ask things like, where are we today? And what kind of business do we want in 3 to 5 years?
And more importantly, what needs to be true for that to happen?
Yes. ThinkQSi breaks this down into 4 key components: vision, strategy, framework, and team.
Okay, let's break those down. Because vision isn't just like a motivational poster in the break room.
No, it's defining exactly what kind of business you want to own.
Hmm.
And then strategy, which I think is the hardest part, is deciding where you are going to play and how you are going to win.
And the document makes a really good point that strategy includes deciding what to stop doing.
Which is so hard for founders. It is agonizing to look at $1 million revenue stream and say, we are shutting this down because it doesn't fit the future.
Yeah, walking away from cash is terrifying. And then you have the framework, which is basically the structure to support that strategy, right?
Exactly. And finally, the team. Do you have the right people in the right seats to actually pull this off?
So hearing all this, there's a massive paradox that jumps out at me. And, we hear this too busy excuse founders use all the time.
Oh, constantly.
It sounds like founders are caught in this crazy loop. Like they tell themselves they can't transform because they are too busy optimizing.
Right.
But they are constantly forced to optimize because they haven't transformed. It's like trying to change the tires on a car while you're still driving down the highway.
That is exactly the trap. And it's why the sorry founders tell themselves has to be replaced with the hard facts.
Yeah.
There's a really stark rule here. You cannot transform without innovating.
You have to try new things.
Yes. If growth and innovation aren't on the table, you are just polishing the current model.
So, okay, now that we have these two concepts, define optimization and transformation, we have to look at how they interact. Because knowing the definitions is pretty useless if you execute them in the wrong order.
And that is the exact trap most founder owners fall into. Order dictates survival here.
The text mentions 2 extreme traps that founders usually live in, right?
Yeah, so trap number 1 is the founder who only optimizes.
A tinkerer.
Exactly. Endlessly fixing, never changing direction. They just become incredibly efficient at going exactly where they already are.
And then trap number 2 is the visionary who only chases big ideas.
Right. They launch new products, they pivot constantly, but their core business operation is an absolute mess.
So nothing actually sticks.
Nothing. So to avoid that, ThinkQSi lays out this mandatory sequence for success. First, strategy. You have to decide where to go so you don't optimize things that don't matter.
Makes sense.
Second, optimize the current operation. Fix the workflows, stabilize your cash flow and your quality.
Get the chaos under control.
Yes. And third, drive transformation. Because now you actually have the stability, time, and energy to innovate and take calculated risks.
Because you aren't spending all day putting out fires.
Exactly. And the text has this brilliant analogy for this sequence. It says, optimization is the runway. Transformation is the flight.
I love that.
You cannot take off from a broken runway, and you don't build a runway just to sit on it.
That analogy is just perfect. But, it implies you don't need a runway that goes on forever, right? You just need it to be long enough to take off.
Yeah, you don't pave the whole world.
Right. So how does a leadership team know when their operational runway is, stable enough to finally pull back the yoke and fly? Because you could, theoretically, just optimize forever.
You really could. The signal is when the chaos subsides.
When things get boring.
Kind of, yeah. When you trust your numbers and your delivery is consistent without you having to manually check everything.
Predictability.
Exactly. That predictability means your leadership team finally has the mental bandwidth and energy to actually execute the blueprint.
Okay, so let's say the team is ready, the runway is solid. But once you're ready to take flight, especially in larger companies like, let's say, the $40 million plus range, there is usually a massive hurdle standing in the way of actually executing it,
Oh yeah, getting the financial backers to agree with the operational leaders.
which requires a completely sudden shift in communication.
Because in those rooms, you essentially have two distinct audiences: the founder and the board of directors or advisors.
And they're speaking totally different languages.
Completely different mindsets. The founders in the trenches. They want practical, direct, fluff-free action.
They're asking, what's broken? What does it cost? And what do I get?
Right, but the board demands structure. They're asking, is there a strategy? Is this credible? What are the risks and returns?
It's like they are looking at the same company through two entirely different lenses.
And that's where ThinkQSi's framework comes in. It actually satisfies both simultaneously. The exact same sequential process assessment, strategy, blueprint, Team It acts as a bridge.
It's fascinating. It's almost like a real-time translation app.
That's a great way to put it.
Like the framework doesn't change the facts on the ground. It just translates founder anxiety and ambition into boardroom risk management and strategy.
And that dual communication is the linchpin of the whole process. Because think about it. Without the board's buy-in on the structure, the founder never gets the resources to build the runway.
True.
But without the founder's practical buy-in, the board's grand strategy just remains a useless slide deck gathering dust.
You need both. You need the board's capital and the founder's grit.
Exactly. Both sides have to see their reality reflected in the blueprint.
So let's wrap this up and bring these massive corporate concepts right back to your doorstep, to you listening right now, because the core message here is so important. Getting out of the weeds doesn't require another growth hack or some fancy new software tool.
Definitely not.
It requires clarifying your future, optimizing your present, and transforming your reality. And honestly, whether you are running a $50 million company or managing a small team or just trying to overhaul your own career path, this blueprint applies.
It really does. You cannot transform if you're constantly fighting fires.
And you shouldn't just fight fires without a plan to eventually change the game entirely. It's a two-part equation.
It is. But I want to end today's deep dive with a final, slightly provocative thought for you to mull over. Think back to that incredible idea we discussed, that optimization is the runway and transformation is the flight.
Such a good visual.
It really is. But it leaves us with a fascinating question. What happens when the weather changes mid-flight?
Ooh,
Because once your transformed business reaches cruising altitude, that altitude becomes your new operational reality.
new baseline.
Exactly, meaning you're going to have to build an entirely new runway in the sky to prepare for the next takeoff. The flight never truly ends, it just demands a new blueprint.